evening, everyone. We'd like to start promptly because we respect your time. Hopefully we can wrap this up in 90 minutes. Welcome to the PTA Council of Howard County Forum for our executive candidates and our state delegation candidates. We have held 2 forums prior to this in this election cycle before the primaries. We held one with the Board of Education candidates, and we held one with our county council candidates as well. We recommend that all of you take time to go to the PTA Council of Howard County website, PTACHC.org.com, and the links to the videos of these presentations are available for you to watch and to share with your constituents. We have had roughly 800 some viewers of these events online. So while the audience may be thin during these post-pandemic days, there are plenty of people at home on their laptops and cell phones watching this and very interested in how our candidates respond to questions. This is a little bit informal. We don't have as strict rules as some of the other forums, but we try our best to follow the guidelines set National PTA Council. However, you will see us switching up the format a little bit. We're doing this year something I call rapid fire, which is 1-minute questions, random. They aren't pointed to a particular individual, but to keep it fair, hey, I didn't get that question and they got it, and I got a great answer. We also have an opportunity for all candidates to respond to any question asked here in writing, and we will post it on our website too for comparison. So while nobody likes a written exam, many people do take time to look at the written component too, and it's a great opportunity for us to cover a wider breadth of subjects than just 3 or 4 questions. So I hope you appreciate this and give us your feedback how this works. And we're constantly learning how to do things better. You hear me echoing right now? We've got a pretty good PA system here at Mount Everett, but we got a horrible air conditioning system that is right dead center on the stage. So for everyone who dares to come to the stage, we have wireless mics. Our interference is pretty good tonight. We don't have much interference, but please enunciate very loud and hold the microphone very close so that your voice is heard over this air conditioner. Otherwise, everyone watching online is going to hear nothing but static. And it is very easy in the heat of a conversation to move that mic far away. Please be aware of that, and also aware that all our viewers here need that. Our question timing will vary a little bit depending on attendance, and I'll call it out so everyone knows. But if you look in the back, there's a handy-dandy LED timer, and Howard County High School student manning it. Wave to everyone. And she will be keeping time for us this evening. All right. So written questions from the audience we'll take. We're going to have roughly 1/3 of this session for county executive candidates, and we'll have the remainder for our state delegate candidates. So let's get the ball rolling. Would all our state candidates, or I'm sorry, county executive candidates, please come forward. We're going to start with a 2-minute introduction, and we'll have a little timer go off here, and we'll make sure the microphone works there for you. Just turn on the switch, please. Without further ado, Mr. Kittleman.
Thank you very much. I want to thank the PTA Council for holding this forum and for advocating so strongly for our students, teachers, and parents. I'm a lifelong resident of Howard County. I attended Howard County Public Schools. My wife Robin's here. We've been married 35 years, and all 4 of our kids attended Howard County Public Schools. I'm running to be your next county executive because I share your concerns about our public schools, the safety of our community, the higher cost of living, and the undue influence of large donors, particularly developers. Unfortunately, our school redistricting has become political. It's no longer just about capacity and proximity. I believe we need a county executive who will stand up strongly for our students and our parents. and advocate to make sure our students can attend their neighborhood schools. I'm also very disappointed that Dr. Ball recommended the removal of school resource officers from our middle schools. I strongly support SROs in our middle schools, and I think we need to have a more positive relationship built between our students and police. For the first time, Howard County voters are going to have an opportunity to vote for a candidate who is not funded by big donors. I'm the only county executive candidate participating in the Citizens Election Fund. That means I don't take any contributions from PACs, businesses, including development companies, and special interests. I only accept donations from individuals, and no one person can give more than $250 for the entire campaign. And when I'm elected, I'm going to stay in the program so that I'll be the first county executive in Howard County history to not take special interest money while in office. Integrity matters. When he became County Executive Ball hired his campaign manager to work in his office. Not only was he paying her tens of thousands of dollars from the campaign, but he also put her in charge of public information requests. Recently, it was learned that she wrongly denied access to almost 500 emails from the county executive's office to a local developer. That is a huge breach of our trust and transparency. Howard County deserves better.
Thank you, Alan. We have several candidates who are not able to join us this evening. Molson Hagenhat, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Mr. Darren Villas, Calvin Ball, and Harry Dunbar. We have written statements from two, and I am not speaking on their behalf, but reading their written statements here. Calvin Ball has written us, as parent and educator, education has always been one of my top priorities. My recent endorsement from Howard County Educators Association was a confirmation that we are doing the work to ensure every student, parent, educator, and staff member is adequately equipped with the proper resources to foster the best teaching and learning environment for all. This year alone, we've committed more than $1 billion to support our school system, with our funding efforts over the past 4 years tripling the previous administration's maintenance of effort level. This operating budget contains funding for 150 special education positions, nearly 80 pre-K positions, 26 for career and college readiness, and 19 for behavioral health and student well-being, including LGBTQIA+ specialists and Hispanic achievement liaisons. Our record investment for school construction fully funded the Board of Education's request and is the highest in 20 years, including the county's 13th high school, the first new high school since 2005. In recently approved fiscal year 23 budget, benefits public safety well, increasing funding for our police department by nearly $11 million and the number of sworn officers by nearly 4 times compared to the previous administration. The budget includes $3.7 million to support 24 additional patrol positions and includes 5 new positions to bolster the mobile interrogative community health initiative in the Department of Fire and Rescue Services. Because of this, the DFRS will have funded more than 80 authorized positions, over 25 more than the previous administration. Commitment to the transformation of Howard County is not one I take lightly, but I believe will protect our environment for our current and future generations. Building on the recent trailblazing initiatives such as passage of the strongest forest conservation law and the largest power purchase agreement in the state, we also have as a community planted over 60,000 trees across our county. Ultimately, it's my hope that we can build upon the progress we've made and make Howard County the best place to live, work, and play for all. Mr. Dunbar's statement is a little more abrupt, but we'll read it as well. We give him points for writing. And he goes, I encourage all to review World Wide Web, HOCOWatchdogs.com before you vote. In addition, look up the word corrupt and understand what it means. And finally, vote for HOCO Progressive Democrats endorsed by candidates found below. All right. Obviously, the PTA Council is nonpartisan, and those are the written statements of our candidates. We will move on now to some questions provided by our members, general public, as well as our board. These are the questions representative of our membership and community that have submitted them this evening. For Mr. Kilman, 1 minute each for these questions, please. and we will start with school construction. Do you support the 14th high school in Elk Ridge? What sites would be excluded from county funding consideration?
I definitely do support the 14th high school. I support that it would be in Elk Ridge. When I was county executive, we actually worked with the Elk Ridge community to look at various different sites in Elk Ridge for 14th high school. And that community came back and said, after that group got together, and said that they preferred to have it at Troy Park. I'm pleased that Dr. Ball also had a community group together and made a decision also at Troy Park. So it seems like both sides kind of agree on that issue. I think, of course, we have to wait until to work with the state on that. I don't believe we should be taking more green space away, if possible, from the Elk Ridge area or other parts of the county. I think as we look at school construction, we're going to have to start looking at it a different way. We're going to have to look at school construction maybe using a P3 model. I know Prince George's County has looked at doing that. During my administration, we used the P3 model to get the courthouse built. And I think we could also use that with our schools. And hopefully that will help us get more capacity in a more expedited manner to make sure our kids can be in a proper learning environment.
Thank you.
Trying to be on time.
You're right on. Next question. Based on the latest revision, is there any items that you would want to enhance in the general plan? Should the plan have proactive or contingent school construction criteria, or focus more on prioritization of revenues?
I think the general plan is a really important document, and I actually was very disappointed that Dr. Ball decided to delay it further, mainly because he didn't want it to affect the election. I think the people of Howard County should be very frustrated by that. They spend an awful lot of time, a lot of county resources, a lot of county community meetings, to now have it to kind of push it aside with the excuse that, oh, we're going to give it more time to look at it. No, it was all about the election. He didn't want to have the general plan come up during an election year. And so I think that that does though give us an opportunity to make sure that we have even better community involvement with the general plan. I heard from a lot of people who've been involved in the process so far that they felt like they really weren't included, that the individuals from the Department of Planning and Zoning were basically telling them what it was going to be and just letting them talk but not taking them seriously. I want to make sure, as the next county executive, that everybody has a seat at the table, that everybody is included, and going to specific revisions, I think we need to bring the people together and make sure that they can help us make the decision on what we should change.
Thank you. And we've encouraged all our membership to participate in the general plan as well, and hopefully, if they haven't so far, this is a nice reminder to do so. Our next question is on campaign finance. It's a common one going around the forums circuit this year. Have you signed on to the No Developer, No Dark Money pledge? What factors influenced your choice?
I have not signed that pledge because I'm in the Citizens Election Fund. And actually, the Citizens Election Fund is a much better tool to make sure that we get big donors out. Because the No Developer Dark Money pledge, you can still get $6,000 from people. You can still get money, because the way developers give money, folks don't always understand this. The developer doesn't always give the money. He has the asphalt guy give it to you. He has the civil engineer give it to you. He has the electrician give it to you. The No Dark Money, No Developer does not cover that at all. But as a Citizens Election Fund participant, and the only one doing that from the county executive race here in Howard County, I can't take any donations from any businesses whatsoever. And I can only take donations from individuals no more than $250. So that already precludes me from getting money from the big developers or big donors. I think what I'm doing is the right way. John Weinstein, the former county executive, and former county councilman, along with Jen Terrazzo, put that bill together. And I think it's a good way to make sure that big donors don't have too much influence in Howard County elections.
Thank you. Perfect timing again.
Brian.
Tonight, many candidates are attending a function for the Howard County General Hospital. Would you support inclusion for publicly funded healthcare facilities serving all ages in APFO?
That's a difficult question. And I know we've had this discussion before. I am open to including more things in the APFO, but I think you got to be careful when they're not funded by the county. If you have something that's not funded by the county included in the APFO, then you're at the whim of somebody that you don't have any control over. For example, I think public safety, which the county funds, is something we should be looking at as possibly including in the APFO. But if you include, the health centers, if you include the hospital, it's difficult to make that requirement because they're not dependent upon the county. The county doesn't force them to build more. The county doesn't fund them to build more. So I think it's a difficult question. I understand why people feel that way, and I totally understand that. But I think we need to make sure that the county requires APFO folks involved in that to be something that the county can do something about. The whole purpose of APFO was to give the county the ability to prepare the infrastructure before school capacity, and we don't have that ability with the HUMP.
Thank you. And I apologize, the microphones are right at the fringe of when you talk loud enough, it echoes and reverbs, and too quietly, we can't hear it. So thank you for modulating appropriately there. As a home rule charter county, how should Howard County be treated under the Express Powers Act and other legislation, including school facilities surcharge fee, building excise tax, housing opportunities trust fund, and the Meriwether noise law? I bet you can guess who this came from too.
First of all, I'm glad we're a home rule charter county. I know there are other counties in Maryland that aren't. I think it's really good that we are. I think it gives our citizens a better chance to participate. And I know that there was other questions asked the previous nights. I would support also increasing our county council from 5 to 7, because I think that would help with the representation. But with regard to those issues, I think that it'd be nice if Howard County had a little more control. Now, I served in the state legislature for 10 years. The state created the counties. So the state controls the counties and gives them the power they want them to have. I would like to have more authority in Howard County, including Meriwether Post. I think that's fair. I think it's also important for us to have more control over other aspects. The school capacity is very difficult. When you have the state determining how to determine capacity, that makes it hard for us as a county if we choose to disagree with that, because they won't give us funding unless we fit their models. And so I think that's something we continue to work with our state delegation. We have a lot of really strong state delegates and senators. I sort of served there for 10 years, and I think my relationship with them can help us in the future.
All right, we're doing pretty good with the rapid fire here. Next one. The county has shifted large shared capital project priorities between the jug handle, the bus rapid transit, Route 32 expansion, and Highway 70 over the years. What order would you place new major capital projects in the next term?
I would put school construction number one. If you're looking at other capital projects besides school construction, that certainly has to be number one. I think we have to look at other ways in which we can enhance bus rapid transit. You talked about that. When I was county executive, we worked with Montgomery County in the state of Maryland to provide the opportunity to do bus rapid transit from Columbia down to DC, and also maybe even Elgin City down to DC from Route 29. That would kind of have to wait for Montgomery County, because it doesn't do any good for us to start if Montgomery County's not ready. So they're still working on that, but I think that's actually a great opportunity for us. The other thing I think we should need to focus on is our local mass transit. I'd like to figure out a way in which we could use the Snowden River Parkway area to have a dedicated lane for folks to travel from East Columbia to West Columbia and back, and also maybe Route 1. I think that would be really helpful. Right now, our bus transit system is difficult. Many folks who ride it know it takes them 2 hours to go from one side of Columbia to the other. I think we could do a better job in figuring out how that could be a part of our capital infrastructure.
Thank you. The executive can create and select members of committees on various topics with a particular outcome in mind. What checks and balances would you consider that bridge the gap between non-binding citizen input sessions and countywide referendums?
That's a pretty broad question there. I think it's important to have citizen input. And I think it's important that the citizens have the opportunity to tell me and listen to me. That's why when I was county executive, I had at least 4 town halls every year. And these weren't town halls where I had 15 people up here all talking so I don't have to. They were town halls where I stood by myself, no one's emceeing, and I just talked with the residents of Howard County. I work for them. They don't work for me. I should be able to stand there for 90 minutes and hear what their questions are, listen to what their concerns are, and respond. You hear a lot about listening sessions. Oh, listening sessions is a way to avoid responding. I think the people should be responding to the citizens. They have a right to know what the county executive thinks. And so I will continue to do that to make sure the citizens have involvement. Also, I would just tell you, on the APFO task force, when it gets recreated after the next general plan, as it's required to do so, what I learned from the past is that we need to have a stronger community voice. And we need to make sure we have more community members involved so they can make sure their representation is heard, as opposed to just those in the development industry.
Thank you. And in fair disclosure, I sat on the very task.
That's why I looked at you.
That's right. How will you address the flooding in the Valley Mead neighborhood And when will the culvert projects begin?
I think Valley Mead oftentimes gets left out. When I was county executive and we had the flooding, we made sure that we were in Valley Mead quite often, talking to the residents, making sure that they knew what projects we were planning on doing. Being out of office for 3 or 4 years, I have less understanding of exactly what's going on there, but I can tell you that what's going on in Ellicott City is frustrating to me. No significant projects have been done in Ellicott City. We need to do more for Ellicott City as well as Valley Mead, frankly, and also Dunlawton. There are a lot of areas that are north and west of Ellicott City that need to have the attention. So I would certainly make Valley Mead a priority. I've talked to a lot of people in Valley Mead who are concerned, especially with these green restoration projects that are going on. So I think it's important that they be included. I think it's something that I can certainly focus on when I become county executive, because I also have a history of already working with that community.
Thank you. What are your thoughts on the continued extensive development with the existing overcrowding in our schools? We will come to the point where there is no green space left unturned. Similar topic, but
No, I appreciate the question. I think there is a big concern with how much development is going on. And sometimes people ask why. Well, the reason why is for 12 years, Dr. Ball served on the zoning board and never once voted against an increase in residential density. It takes time for those developments to be built, and now we're seeing it happen. And I think that's the problem. We've had so much decisions to do that, and I should point out the delegate process here, and she's not one of those. She actually voted often to bring back density. But Dr. Ball always voted for more density, and that's the real problem. And now the county executive has to be there to make sure we deal with what we have. So what we have to do is, I said a little bit earlier, we need to look at new ways to build the school construction. We need to look at P3s. We also need to look at maybe building up instead of out. There are other places that have done that, and we should look at other ways in which we can build schools so that we have the capacity to help our students. And we can't always go the way we've always done it. We have to be willing to look at a different view and maybe go outside the box.
okay. And for hosts here, do we have any other questions that you're going forward, or are we going to conclude? All right. So we have one concluding question.
Okay, thank you.
And it looks like we're doing well on time here. What do you see as the role of the office you're seeking in education in Howard County, and how do you anticipate working with the Board of Education?
I think that's a fantastic question. The county executive has a huge role with education. The county executive may not have control of the Board of Education, and he shouldn't or she shouldn't, but there is a great relationship there. When I became county executive, we had a difficult superintendent, and I helped mediate her departure. And then Dr. Martirano came. And I tell you, when he came, he and I made a commitment to meet every month for breakfast. No agendas, just talk about whatever was out there. And it was a great opportunity for he and I to develop a strong relationship beyond just the dealing with the school system. And I think that's important for the county executive to have that type of relationship with the superintendent as well as the other members of the Board of Education, because you need to be able to work together. Dr. Martirano and I had a very strong relationship. I felt like I had a good relationship with the Board of Education members as well. That's just so important. Education is the most important issue to most everybody in Howard County. We need to make sure that it continues to be a priority, and I'll continue to make it my priority when I'm your county executive starting in December of 2022.
Thank you very much. That concludes our questions. Thank you very much for being part of the process. We wish we had more people in the seats here, but I am very sure that many will be watching us online. Feel free to broadly share if you have opinions that you'd like others to know. Our media is available for all candidates to share with others.
Thank you very much, Brent, for the opportunity.
Thank you. With that, if you wouldn't mind, we have we're going to collect name cards. If all of the state delegates that are here for the second half come forward, please enter on that side of the stage. Grab your name card. Some people say we should group you. Some say we should keep you apart. I will leave that up to you how you congregate together up on the stage. We have a congressional candidate here that we'd just like to recognize during the setup here. And please, just a minute.
Hi, thank you all for having me. My name is Yurif C. Morgan. I'm an attorney. You might have heard me on WBAL. I used to do the 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. show there. And now I'm running for U.S. Congress in the new District 3, which includes all of Howard County, it's half of Anne Arundel County, and a little bit of Carroll County. So I've got some material in the back, I've got some signs, I'll be around for a little bit, so if you'd like to talk, I'd love to tell you more about my agenda, what I plan to do, and particularly as we're all facing this record inflation, we're all very concerned particularly about gas prices and what we're going to do about rising groceries and all the other things that we're dealing with as families, as individuals. So I'll be around in the back, I'll be hanging out. Like I said, I've got materials there. I'm so excited that you all are here learning about your legislators and future legislators. So thank you all for having me. Again, my name is Ruth C. Morgan.
Thank you. I apologize. I forgot we had some introductions to do. And as I was concluding on the previous, we have a little bit of a mixed bag here of various offices, positions, seating, and that is by design. And these questions in theory should be appropriate for all office levels, but may not be. And feel free to note that if you feel you're being asked something that is inappropriate for your office. I must say, some of the state offices are some of the least understood, and especially in education circles, you get asked a lot of questions that are in the authority of the Board of Education as opposed to your own office. But this is a learning experience for us too, so feel free to share your opinions on these topics, and hopefully we get the best benefit of this format going forward. Thank you. So I am counting a lot of people here, which thank you for coming tonight. I know there are other competing events, so we really appreciate that. Since a long introduction would eat through a majority of our questions, I'm going to go to short introductions, so 1 minute each, please. And unfortunately, just like school, depends where you sit, the Z's or the far right, left of the stage or right, depending which way you're looking. You start us off, Ms. Ziegler.
Thank you so much for hosting this forum and for everybody here in the audience for coming. I'm Natalie Ziegler. I'm running for state delegate in District 9A. I'm a small business owner. My first career was in broadcast journalism. In 2001, my husband and I started a small manufacturing company, and we also run a farm. I've done so much volunteering in my life, much of it related to education. First of all, I was a mother of 2 children who went through Howard County Public Schools, and I volunteered with schools. I've also been a literacy tutor at South Baltimore Learning Center, which has been an incredible window into how we failed so many of the students in our society. I serve on the NAACP Education Committee, and I'm a trustee of Howard Community College. I'm running because I feel that we as a nation and as a state are really at a tipping point. There's a moment now when
Ms.
we
Ziegler,
have...
can you conclude, please?
Yes,
We're doing
I'm sorry.
1 minute.
Thank you so much. Natalie Ziegler, running for state delegate.
Good evening. I want to thank the council for inviting us and having this forum. I think these types of forums are especially important for our democracy, so people know and learn about what the candidates, who they are, what they stand for. Good evening. I'm Dr. Stephen Boland. I'm running for state delegate in District 9A. I'm a 27-year veteran of federal service. I was a professional intelligence officer, a researcher for NASA, and an engineer for the U.S. Air Force. Now retired, I'm actively serving our community. As part of my activities as an intelligence officer, I suffered PTSD, so I'm active with the National Alliance for Mental Illness. I'm a board member of NAMI Howard County. I also serve with the Howard County Autism Society, and I continue to serve our country and our community. I'm the vice chair for the Howard County Police Department Citizens Advisory Council, and the vice flotilla commander for my U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary Unit. There's a lot of things we're going to talk about tonight. The inflation is hurting the family budget, seniors. We need to get a handle on that before the R word comes up, recession. We need to help people save money now so they can weather the storm that's coming later. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's see, is this where I actually, okay.
Yeah, for all of you, I appreciate it. It is that delicate balance between being too loud and too soft, but we need everyone to be able to hear. Thank you.
Great. Good evening, and thank you to Brent Loveless and PTAC for having me here. I've really enjoyed our relationship over the years, and I look forward to continuing to work with you. I'm Jen Terrassa, and I'm a lawyer, and I'm one of your current state delegates representing District 13 in Annapolis. Many of you know me from my 12 years on the county council and 4 years now serving as state delegate. I've lived in Howard County for most of my life, and I'm a proud graduate of Oakland Mills High School. I now live in Kings Contrivance, where I've raised my 3 kids, and they're all proud Hammond grads. I'm running for re-election to continue serving my community as I have for nearly 2 decades, and because I think it's critical that we have a strong, experienced, consistent, progressive voices in the Maryland General Assembly. And again, this is Jen Terrassa, and I look forward to the rest of the forum.
Thank you. I'm Delegate Vanessa Atterbury, and I am running for re-election in District 13 along with my colleague, Delegate Jen Terrassa, and Pam Bizzoni is on our team, and Senator Guy Bizzoni. I want to thank PTAC for having us, and I also want to thank Mr. Lovelace for the partnership over the years and working on local legislation with me over the years to try to bring more money to our schools, specifically for deferred maintenance. I was born and raised right here in Howard County. I am a proud graduate of Appleton High School, go Raiders, and I'm raising my 3 children here as well. My mother is a retired public school teacher. She taught in Howard County for over 30 years, and I am very proud to have been endorsed by the teachers and by the People's Voice Ethics Ballot. This is an exciting time for Howard County, and I'm running for re-election because I was just recently appointed chair of the Ways and Means Committee, which is a great opportunity for our county since it oversees all of education for our state. So I look forward to the questions, and again, thank you for having me.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Seth Raymond, and I'm a first-generation American. I have been living in Howard County for the last 20 years with my family. I have 3 kids who are all going to Howard County Public School System. As far as my professional career is concerned, for the last 30 years or so, I've been working various different organizations. For the last 16 years, I've been running my own business in information technology field. I also volunteer locally and at the state and national level. I'm currently a commissioner for Maryland Economic Development Commission and Consumer Council. Both are appointed positions by the Governor Hogan. As far as I'm also a board member for Disaster Services Corporation, which is a Catholic lay organization. And I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Trent Fiddleman. I am a delegate from District 9A. I've been there for 8 years, thoroughly enjoying it and trying to represent my constituents. I am a lawyer by trade. I have done a number of different things that all kind of feed into being a delegate. I worked for Marriott International as an in-house counsel. They put me on the Montgomery County Transportation Policy Task Force 2, which was a good thing because our district has changed, and now instead of having Carroll County, we have a piece of Montgomery in it. So I'm familiar with that part of the county and look forward to them. I also led into my being appointed as Deputy Secretary of Transportation under Governor Ehrlich, and then they sent me over to run the Maryland Transportation Authority, which does all of the toll bridges forward, and that was quite an experience. And in 2014, I ran and won my seat in the House.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Tao. I'm running for state delegate in District 9A. Right now, I'm serving Howard County Board of Education. This is my last year on the school board. I was elected in 2018. I served as the chair in 2021. I have a first-hand experience on many challenges we're facing. I'm a data scientist and received my PhD from University of Maryland. I will work with all stakeholders to address major challenges we're facing: funding gap in education, overdevelopment in the community, and the environmental protection for the state. Most importantly, serving the people of Howard County. I want to put my skills, my experience, and my vision to the state level to serve Howard County people. Thank you.
Just 1 second. There we go. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amy Brooks. I'm running for state delegate in District 13. I'm a proud public school teacher. I teach at Oakland Mills High School, and I'm also a proud public school parent. All 3 of my boys attend Howard County Public Schools. I'm running because I think that we need a lot of different perspectives in representational spaces like the House of Delegates. In these spaces, we need to have a cross-section of our community representing the views and values of that community. I'm running a grassroots campaign with very small donations from a large group of people across Howard County and beyond who really want to see progressive values and a strong voice for students, parents, and all the neighborhoods who are affected by our schools. During COVID, we saw the impact that it had on our entire economy when our buildings were closed. COVID is not over. I'm the only person who is running for state delegate on this dais who has been teaching throughout COVID. This is technically my 3rd day of summer break, and I would love to represent my community moving forward. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Pam Pizzoni, and I'm running to represent District 13 in the House of Delegates. I'm originally from Massachusetts and raised in a family of civil servants, teachers, school administrators, and firefighters, but have been here in Howard County for over half of my life now. My 3 children were raised here and all attended Howard County Public Schools and graduated from Hammond High School. Professionally, I worked at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center for over 30 years in positions that provided me with opportunities to work on issues that you may not normally think of as part of NASA's mission to explore space. Issues like systemic racism and social justice and early childhood education. I've also lived in District 13 for over 30 years and have been involved in the community throughout that time. As the kids were growing up, with PTAs, Girl Scouts, Columbia Summer Swim League, and years selling pizza at the Hammond High School Snack Shack. Currently, I'm a member of the Howard County Commission for Women. I'm on the ARC of Howard County's Board of Directors, and I'm a mentor and volunteer with Ohana HC. As a delegate, I'll bring my NASA skills and experience and my community knowledge and awareness together to do good things in Annapolis. Thank you to PTA Council.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Feldmark. For the past 3.5 years, I've had the honor and privilege of representing District 12 in the Maryland House of Delegates. And I'm excited to be running for re-election in the newly created District 12A, together with my colleagues, Delegate Terry Hill and Senator Clarence Lamb. Over my first term in office, I've established myself as an effective legislator and advocate for my constituents. And I've earned a reputation as a key leader on voting rights, workers' rights, tax fairness, and other economic justice issues. I'm proud to be known also for my commitment to our schools, our environment, and affordable access to health care, including full access to reproductive health care. Most of all, I'm proud to be known as someone who listens to the community, asks tough questions, works together with stakeholders, tackles complex issues, and gets things done. I know how to collaborate on solutions without compromising on values. That's why I've earned the endorsement of our teachers, Sierra Club, League of Conservation Voters, AFL-CIO, Pro-Choice Maryland Action, CASA in Action, and many other organizations. Hope to earn your support as well. Have a good night.
Good evening. My name is Terry Hill. I'd like to thank PTAC for sponsoring this forum. I have been serving, representing District 12 since 2015. It is a privilege to have that opportunity to be running for re-election in the new 12A with my colleague, Delegate Jessica Feldmark and Senator Clarence Lamb. As the only practicing physician in the General Assembly, I serve on the Health and Government Operations Committee, and over the past 8 years have had significant influence on trying to improve our healthcare system, lower costs, increase access, particularly to behavioral health services, and have also been an effective legislator on issues around education, equity, and opportunity. I asked him for the opportunity to continue working for the people of Howard County, the people of Maryland, to try and make sure that every Marylander has the opportunity to access those things to give them, to help them live their best lives. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Clarence Lamb, Senator of District 12. Pleasure to be here. I want to thank the PTA Council for hosting this important forum, and also to Ms. Loveless for moderating this. It's good to see you again. And so I'm pleased to be here to be running with my colleagues, Delegate Feldmark and Delegate Hill in 12A. And we are running as a team to continue the strong work that we've done in the General Assembly over the last years. My background is also as a physician, so we see patients every single week. And I'm running for re-election because we've made a lot of progress when it comes to providing essential funding for our schools, supporting our educators, enhancing our curriculum, and supporting and improving school safety, and also increasing transparency and accountability in our school systems, and also increasing equity. I had the privilege of serving in the Senate Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs Committee, been endorsed by our Howard County educators, as well as many others, Delegate Feldmark was mentioned as well. I'm Clarence Lamb, running for State Senate, and hope to have your support for re-election.
Hi, everybody. My name is Maureen Robinson, and thank you, PTAC, for being here and for sponsoring us tonight. Thank you for allowing us to all be on the stage together. I'm running to represent you all as your new senator in District 12. So I'm running to replace Senator Lamb because we need, as Marylanders, an opportunity to have balanced government in our state legislation. What we've seen over the last 10 years or so is one-party control, and that one-party control has led to increased taxation, increased inflation, and things going on in our schools and with our children that we can and must say as parents must not continue. I'm asking you to support me, and I as well have committed to not taking special interest money and to serving you rather than expecting you to serve and enrich me. I am a mother who has raised my son here in Howard County. We were in Howard County Public Schools until we began to homeschool. I have served in the school system, advocating on your behalf, and want your vote. Thank you so much.
Maverick. My name is Bob Cockey, and I'm running for Senate seat in the 12th Legislative District. I'm not a doctor, a lawyer, or an Indian chief, and I'll keep this as brief as possible. Some of the incumbents in here felt that it wasn't important to the citizens of Maryland to extend the gas break during the high gas prices. Also, I'm not endorsed by any of the unions, which means I'm not owned or obligated to any of the unions. Some of the things I would like to talk about tonight is election integrity. I'm going to make this short so that we can get into the meat and the potatoes of this format. Thank you, and once again for the PTA, because the most important thing to us now and for our future is education. Because education is the vehicle that drives everything in our life. Thank you.
Thank you. If you wouldn't mind turning that mic off, Dr. Wu, if you wouldn't mind passing the mic by you down, we're going to start the questions at the end. Yes. Thank you. I'd like to recognize, we have a pretty extensive invite list, but Ms. Jenny Zhang, Ms. Lisa Kim, Ms. Courtney Watson, Mr. Christopher Feldwick, sorry, didn't even mix them up there, Ms. Feldman. Patrick Walsh, Chris Yates, Becca Nyberg, and Katie Fry Hester were not able to attend this evening. And no, I'm not going to read 12 statements from them. They did not submit any, so I'll spare you that detail. I'm going to start off with a show of hands. This is the easiest question tonight. Are you or have you been a prior PTA member? Of those, how many of you have been a PTA officer? All right, just a show of hands. No conflict of interest there, but thank you for supporting the PTA organization. I will admit we have questions here from the audience. from the audience, as well as written questions, as well as board questions. Like I said earlier, all of your positions are a little different than the traditional Board of Education, and you may get questions that may not be necessarily suitable for your role. Please roll with it, I guess, and take the topics and help expand upon them. But in order to get a much more broader list of participation, we're going with a rapid fire. And as I've said earlier, if there's any question you feel that you really have a great answer for and don't get an opportunity to be asked tonight, we do have a written component, and please write PTA Council, PTACHC.org, and we will make sure those are posted online so that all voters are able to review that. With that, we're going to start the timer, 1 minute each for questions, and we're going to, honestly, these are completely random based on what seats you chose tonight, and we're going to start with Ms. Ziegler on campaign finance. And actually, I apologize, 1 second. One more show of hands, same question as our executive candidates. How many of you have signed on to the No Developer, No Dark Money pledge? Okay. That is not a question, that's a request of some of our members. Let's go to the questions. Blueprint. A blueprint goal has been to set a minimum of $60,000 base salary for teachers. How does that plan account for inflation? Should the laws related to that be amended?
Well, we obviously are going to have to do something to increase teachers' pay, or we're not going to have any teachers. Teachers are highly educated, and in this job market can earn a lot more money doing a much easier job. So yes, I would certainly expect that we index teachers' pay to inflation.
Thank you. Actually did very good on time. And I will say, if you feel like responding to any of the other questions, you're free to do so with your time, as long as you respect the first question asked and respond to that. Right? In April 2022, it was reported that teacher salaries were 11% less than they were 30 years ago in real dollars. What inflationary trends would you seek to adjust first?
As far as teachers' pay, is that what you're talking about?
I believe so, and I don't have a source, so I'll take it with a grain of salt.
So I don't know. I would want to make sure that teachers' pensions, let's talk about that, are commensurate with cost of living allowance, that we make sure pensions stay up with inflation, so let's start with that. As far as teachers' pay, I agree with Natalie that we need to compensate teachers for the highly skilled professionals that they are. I don't think that contributes to inflation. I think that just kind of recognizes the critical role they play in our community to help educate our children.
Thank you very much. We're going to get through these in record time if they're all 30-second questions. All right. How would you ensure that the school systems in Maryland meet the financial obligations of the Kerwin Blueprint for Maryland's future? What areas that need reconciliation with the state government offices? And I apologize, you see a theme here.
Okay, so you're one off from the right person to answer that question. But what I'll say is that it's already funded for the next 7 or 8 years, so that answers that question. In terms of teacher salary, I'm just going to go back to that question for 2 seconds. It's really important and part of the blueprint to professionalize the teaching profession. There are professionals, but the pay scale should value that and recognize that. They need to be paid more. We need to be able to attract and retain good teachers, and we shouldn't be taking good teachers out of the classroom to put them in leadership positions. What we should be doing is paying them more in the positions they're in that they're doing so well in.
Thank you very much. Next, we're sliding to our favorite topic of the budget, which is very broad. Unlike most of the more than 13,000 school boards across the nation, Maryland school systems rely on the state and local government funding through our maintenance of effort law. What are the pros or cons of not giving our local school boards taxing authority?
Well, so
Thank you for the question, and I've worked with you and to try to get some excise taxes through the delegation for deferred maintenance projects because the locals did not have that authority. So, you know, right there, I think the locals are the ones that are on the ground and can see the key issues. And so when you have to come back to the state to try to get funding, it's very difficult. I think that this is an excellent opportunity. I've been in the General Assembly for 8 years, and I served on judiciary, but this past legislative session, the speaker appointed me chair of the Ways and Means Committee, and we've been able to do some great things. Working with Senator Guy Gazzoni, who chairs Budget and Tax, we've been able to bring back $35 million for the county, for the schools that are unrestricted funds, so they don't have to be matched by the locals here. So I think having me in this position is an excellent opportunity to work with our Board of Ed, to work with our county executive, and to work with your organization.
Thank you very much. Next question. With inflation reaching 8% or more, what are the largest state functions without inflation indexing that are vulnerable to lower spending value? Which would you legislate?
Repeat the question.
Sure. With inflation reaching 8% or more, what are the largest state functions without a built-in indexing value that are vulnerable to lower spending value? What would you legislate to fix first of those?
Well, there's, you know, various different things, but to come back to FSC education, we need to ensure that, you know, we're fully funding all our 24 so jurisdictions that we have in Howard County, state of Maryland. So I would say concentration-wise or as far as priority-wise, education still remains a top priority, and we should ensure that we meet that before we kind of figure out anything else that we need to worry about.
Thank you. Let's start rolling into operations. As you know, many of our members who are writing questions are very education focused in these, although they could ask anything. But we're going to start with, is there anything from a state legislative perspective that you think could increase the appeal of teaching as a profession in Maryland? What would help attract and retain quality teachers?
I have a sort of different perspective from some of my colleagues. Education has become my passion for the last 6 years, and I write about it frequently in my newsletter. Maryland is not, as we used to think, number 1 or 2 in schools. We are in the middle. That was found by the Kerwin Commission. And if Kerwin works, it will take many years to do that. I think we all found during the pandemic that having a public monopoly hurts not just the parents and some of the children, it hurts the teachers. Our teachers are wonderful, but they are more or less prisoners of a system that they have very little control over. So I think one of the things that would help encourage teachers to come to Maryland would be less union control and more opportunity for choice for parents and students.
Thank you. Our next question, and there's a little bit of overlaps on some of these. Should the government offer free and reduced tuition in state colleges for students who commit to teach for a minimum number of years?
That's a great question. I think I totally support that. And people paying attention to education, we know that the shortage of our teachers, right? That's one channel we can train for future teaching. I think the state should put some money there, put some effort, like a scholarship, encourage our young students to go to the teaching profession. Beyond that, I think, going back to some question earlier, I think on the school board during the last 3.5 years, I have been supporting our teachers about a salary increase, and I strongly advocate for $60,000 starting salary. I think in the future, we should put inflation impact in the teacher salary as well. The other part I would say, not just salary, but the compensation or the package is something important. Further part, I think the state budget should consider the population growth or student growth or their funding formula. Right now, it's really not advantage to Howard County because we're second highest growing county, but the state funding formula is not reflecting that.
Thank you, Dr. Our next question. How can the state legislature help address the overcrowding in our schools?
Well, the capital funding is definitely going to address that. Building schools and renovating our current schools are critically important, and that's where a lot of capital funding is going to be coming down from the state level. I want to emphasize, as a teacher, I know there are things that incentivize me. I started in Baltimore City in the Baltimore Resident Teacher Program. My program was faster and leaner, and I was able to get into the classroom while I had a provisional teaching license. We are seeing teachers leave in record numbers. I witnessed that this year. We have less people coming into the profession. If we can incentivize having teachers in our buildings because we offer live where you work incentives, if we offer things like getting advanced degrees and staying in the classroom and senior increase, which is all part of Blueprint, that's going to make a huge difference in the lives of everyone.
Please switch to the emergency.
It will make a
standby.
huge difference in the lives of everyone who is impacted by our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. How can the state best help local schools improve student proficiency in math, English, and science in light of the recent staggering declines?
I have two thoughts on that. First is, I think, and this is part of the blueprint, expanding pre-K and moving towards having it be universalism would be something that would be very valuable in that space, giving children a really solid start before, in terms of coordinating classrooms and getting some learning, hands-on learning, those kind of things.
And I
before they
apologize. Could you enunciate this a little?
Sorry, I'm trying to go fast because I'm watching that clock. Anyhow.
We'll give you a second.
Yes, anyhow. So universal pre-K, I think, will help with that. I think if it's done super well, which is something I'm very interested in, it will help close the gap, education gap that we have. And then the second thing is that it flew out of my mind. But I know that we've seen a lot of positive results from small group tutoring in the classrooms, and that's something that we should be focusing on over the next few years to help kids do catch up and close the gap.
Thank you. And within the time. Let's see. What have you done or will you do to make school funding a priority? This is one of the easier ones. Roll with it.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, I think school funding is one of the top priorities in the state, and we've made significant increases over the course of this term, and the blueprint is a big part of that, a significant commitment to making sure that we have the best schools we can. The blueprint is one big part of it. The other is the Built to Learn Act and capital funding, and increasing capital funding, recognizing that a lot of the kinds of supports that we just heard about in the last response, right? Those small groups, things like that. We need space for those things to happen. And right now, if you're in an overcrowded classroom, your teachers are just making do. They need space and support staff to be able to really apply those interventions that work. And I think that if we ask teachers, they know the strategies that will help close these gaps, that will help improve outcomes. We need to give them the resources and the flexibility to be able to implement them.
Thank you. Next question. How can the state increase local school districts' accountability for how they spend their tax dollars?
Okay. Thank you. I'm Terry Hill. Thank you for the question. How can we increase local accountability? It's kind of interesting because we usually approach accountability by looking at test scores. But one of the answers to the earlier question about how do we encourage and keep teachers in the profession is by asking them to teach and not to teach to the test. So we have to create environments that encourage teachers to do what they were trained to do and to work with their kids to help their kids get the best possible outcomes. So I think accountability, the money comes from the state to the county, to the school system. And I think that's how we do that. We look at their performances, but we also have to be there when the system says we're not doing as well as we should, that we have to be there to give them the support that they need. And so that's the short answer to that question. I don't think we introduce more testing.
Thank you. Actually, the 1 minute answer, and perfect timing. Onto the capital budget. Are there plans, once again, to try to pass legislation imposing excise tax on commercial building construction so that revenues can be used exclusively to remedy the millions in deferred maintenance needed by Howard County Public School System? This is a long one, I apologize. Are there any other ways money can be raised to address this problem?
Well, thank you for that question, Clarence and Senator. Well, I think the capital budget is very important, and it is important to be able to support our aging infrastructure of our schools, to be able to have the funds to be able to support new school construction as well as renovation. We, in the General Assembly over the last year, have actually put a record amount of funding into school construction into the capital budget. And so that we've done through the Build to Learn Act, which was passed 2 years ago, which added more than $1 billion within our state's budget allocated to school capital funding. And so I think we recognize here in Howard County that we have many schools that are overcrowded, are in need of renovation. And that's why through that support we have record funding, working with our local county government, over $1 billion in overall budget for the school system, over $300 million for capital funds that help support the new high school 13, a renovation of Calvin Springs, and other important renovation projects as well. So thank you for that question.
Thank you, Dr. Lang. This is a very specific question, but feel free to answer it as you would like. What can the Howard County delegation do to further the passage of legislation that shifts the burden of proof from parents to public agencies in due process hearings under the IDEA? What can parents and advocates do to support your efforts? Why do the bills make this change over the past 9 years? Sorry for the wording. Why have these been failing over the last 9 years?
That's a great question. I'm Maverine Robinson, again, running to be your senator in District 12. These bills have failed in the last 12 years because those in the decision-making positions have been afraid to stand up and say no to some educators and educator associations who have pushed back on placing the burden of proof on the educational system rather than the parents. So I think the first thing that we must do is begin to ask questions of those of us who are seeking your vote and asking to serve you that would give you the understanding about whether we first understand what IDEA is intended to do. And if we understand what IDEA is intended to do, and quickly I will just say, because I have 17 seconds, it has everything to do with special learning, special education, IEP funding, etc. To ask that person if they'd be willing to say no to the profits and do what's right for the families. I am that person, and so I ask again for your vote because it's good to have a two-party system and that vote.
Thank you. Our next question is on a hot topic in our region, student members of the board. What do you think is the role of the student member of Howard County Board of Education? Should the role, which could also be filled by a minor, be able to vote on contractual and budgetary matters?
I'm Bob Cocker. I'm a candidate for the Senate in the 12th District also. I would be very much in favor of a student member voting with the board. They've got an inside seat, know what's going on and what's needed in the school system. And more than anyone else, they are the future of education. And to touch on the $60,000 salary that first was brought up, that's almost an insult to a teacher today. I believe that a garbage man makes more money than that. Our teachers are the most important employees we have in our government. So I'm all for funding the teachers, they should at least have a consumer price index written into their contracts so that when inflation goes up, they don't have to worry about buying pencils for their students, which they do out of their own pocket. So I'm all for the student member voting. I'm all for giving the teachers not $60,000, but have their salary adjusted to the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. Thank you.
Now we can play pass the mic down to the end. We can take a risk with that one, or we could go with the other one. Everyone has the same issues with wireless mics at these events. All right. Thank you. Our next question, would you support legislation that would allow parents to opt their kids out of sexually explicit content in schools? That's another hot item.
This is such a hard one. There's a huge part of me that wants to say no, but I'm going to say yes. I guess I feel that ultimately the freedom to practice religion is also important, and I do consider that sort of a religious question. At the same time, please, please, please don't do that to your children. They really need that education.
Thank you. Our next question, has the maintenance of effort threshold laws worked effectively enough to fully fund increasing costs related with the school systems?
Well, yes and no. We're going to have to place more of the burden for school systems MOE back on the states. I think it's about a 50-50 mix now with the county and the state. With the new blueprint for Maryland, I think it's going to be hard for the county to keep up with that. But I also want to get back to some other questions too. And I think power back to the parents. I think the new process of burden for special needs kids should be put back on the burden, put back on the Board of Education. Power to the parents in this regard. How do we incentivize teachers to stay in the profession? Well, we offload their workload. We provide more mental health care services, special needs services, counselors for them. Both my parents were teachers. I know how incredibly hard teachers work. So if we let teachers get back to the basics of teaching, maybe that'll keep more of them in the profession. And what would you do for funding? What would you prioritize? Well, I would prioritize special needs funding. This is for the special needs students. They need early diagnosis and intervention that carries them through K through 12, and then post-secondary education to place them into our community so they can continue to thrive.
Thank you. Our next question, what state regulations would you have to modify if the Howard County Public School System shifts away from contracted services to an in-house fleet? Let me check the wording on this. What would you have to change if Howard County Public School System changes its bus contract services to a partial or full in-house operation?
Okay, in terms of that issue, I think it's a really good idea for that to be shifted to be in-house. I think for a whole host of reasons, transportation is a constant issue in our school system, from field trips that some schools are not able to do because of the transportation, to the way we treat our bus drivers and their ability to recruit more bus drivers. Certainly having that as an in-house function would help that. I also wanted to go back to the teacher pay issue and just remind folks that the 60,000 that we're talking about getting up to, which I think is a bare minimum, 60,000 is half of the median income in Howard County. So I just want people to give that a thought. But there also needs to be planning time, there also needs to be benefits, and there also needs to be retirement. And my last second with school funding, I think we should stay away from P3s. Developers should pay their fair share. We should pass the excise tax, and we should plan in extra capacity in schools so we don't have to keep redistricting.
All right, we pack in the subjects. Our next question. What state regulations would you have to, I apologize. You would have gotten the same question. When the IDEA law when the idea became law in 1975, the federal government promised to fund 40% of the additional cost for educating children with disabilities. Yet the federal government has never provided more than 20%, with state and locals making up the majority of the costs. As a stakeholder, would you sponsor legislation to coordinate with all parties for a solution to this issue?
I think, again, I'm Delegate Vanessa Atterbury, and I chair the Ways and Means Committee, which oversees education policy for the state of Maryland. And this is a great question because I wouldn't have to sponsor legislation because I think I would be able to just bring all those stakeholders together as chair of that particular committee. And I think that that's something that should be done. I want to circle back also to the burden of proof question for special education. And I want to be clear, and this is really important, that legislation has been pending statewide legislation for several years. Howard County, your Howard County delegation unanimously passed that legislation, and as chair for the county, and as chair of the Ways and Means, I got that through our committee, and we got that through the House of Delegates. The Senate committee could not get that passed. The chair in that Senate committee refused to have a hearing on that issue, which is incredibly unfortunate. And so my recommendation would be for individuals to put pressure on the chair of that committee in the Senate who refuses to pass that legislation.
Thank you. Next question. Would you support a bill like House Bill 1256 introduced in February 2022 that aims to prevent schools from teaching certain discriminatory concepts, such as one that race or sex is inherently superior to another race, or that individual, because of an individual's race or sex, is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive without whether consciously or unconsciously? Another hot item.
So would you support teaching those, or?
I gotta admit, this is a very complicated wording, but it does read as, would you support a bill like House Bill 1256? And I would assume that it addresses these topics.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the whole thing? So,
would you support a bill like House Bill 1256 introduced in February 2022 that aims to prevent schools from teaching certain discriminatory concepts, such as one that race or sex is inherently superior to another race, or that an individual, because of an individual's race or sex, is inherently racist, sexist, oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously?
Yes.
Thank you.
I do want to kind of, say a few things on other issues, but answer to your question is simple yes. I keep hearing, more money will solve a lot of our issues, including the teachers issue that we're having. For a number of years, we have a 60-40 veto-proof majority, Democratic majority. And what it has given us is pretty much #1 state from the bottom when it comes to the retirees exodus because of the taxes that we are kind of, pushing. So as for, when it comes to a teaching profession, it's suffering. It's not suffering just because of the money issue only. We got safety issues, overcrowding issues, lack of resources that we need to ensure that we are looking at a wholesome approach when we are attracting the qualified right teachers. When it comes to the rec funding that the senator talked about.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. Our next question is on the environment. There is increased pressure to build schools denser on the same or less amount of land, reducing the amount of green space per student and public overall. Would you endorse legislation to expand green space over time, despite the increased costs from development competition?
Pretty much could be a county.
It may be, but it gives you a platform to talk about anything on your environmental agenda.
I do think that the idea of building schools that go up and pull more students is a good one. I support doing things for the environment that make sense. and I think a lot of times we do sometimes go overboard. I also would like to ask that complicated question that you just asked, Delegate Raymond. That essentially, I don't know what the bill said, and I never say I would support a bill until I read all what it said. But essentially, what it was complaining about or trying to prevent is the teaching of what is CRT. And everybody is concerned about what is that and what is it exactly. And I think that description really captures it. If you teach children that there is a difference in the race and that there are pressures and non-pressures, and it's very difficult to find. And we have to make sure that it doesn't be in our school.
Thank you. Our next question, would you legislate additional incentives for bus electrification? How would you resolve the differences between the safety measures on dedicated school buses and transit bus designs?
Can you repeat that?
Would you legislate additional incentives for bus electrification?
Mm-hmm.
How would you resolve the differences between the safety measures on dedicated yellow buses and transit buses?
Okay, thank you. I think just electric bus, right? Easier to understand. And definitely are supporting we purchase and getting more electric buses. And actually our school system is doing that right now with the funding from the state support that. So I want to go back to some topics to talk about. I think a lot of topics actually it's kind of for me. So let's talk about the bus contract. We're going to talk about tomorrow night, our school board meeting, the bus contract stuff, right? So MOE, I would say, it's sufficient or not sufficient. But one critical question for county funding or state funding. Our state and county budget grows every year. However, if the percentage of the funding goes to the public school is decreasing in the whole budget, that's the problem, right? You're not catching up with the growth, the student population and the funding. I think we need to legislate that, make sure the percentage of funding from the state and the county will not going down in their whole budget, when the whole budget is going up.
Thank you, Dr. The Climate Solution Law, SB 528, is designed to incentivize building more net zero energy efficient schools and require school systems to purchase zero emission school buses in the coming years. What would you consider a benchmark or threshold to revisit this regulation for additional support?
I want to see how it's working in the school buildings and in the places around our state and country before we move forward with a large capital investment. We are not the only school district in the state, in the country, and so many people are already doing things that are working well or that have had pitfalls. We have one-to-one computers roll out in a very clunky, haphazard manner. Many of you have this as parents. But counties around the state have been doing this for years, and it's just me, I guess. I don't know how to hold the mic. So I would like to learn more about where this investment has already been successful and learn from any pitfalls that they have made. In terms of critical race theory or what teachers do in class, I do want to emphasize that teachers are professionals and it goes beyond just paying them. It's also understanding their expertise. And after 22 years of teaching, I know that for many of those years, our school systems have encouraged not centering the historically marginalized or excluded groups. And we're finally getting to the place that we're recognizing everybody that's in Howard County should be represented in our classrooms, and I'm proud to do that.
From the audience, due to the pandemic, student learning has fallen behind an estimated 15 weeks. How do you plan to close this gap? I think we asked a similar question. Actually, in fairness, I will switch them.
Okay.
It's called Mark, you know what's coming up. And go with,
She'll get a good answer, I know.
would you support a bill that no longer requires 180 days of in-person instruction? Not the original one?
I guess what I'm latching onto there is the in-person instruction aspect of it, rather than the 180 days. And so if that's a sort of a question that's going towards the ability to have more online learning, I think that I would be open to that. I think that one of the things coming out of the pandemic that the education system and really anybody who cares about this issue, which I think we all do, need to look at are what are some of the best practices that you may be able to learn from that occurred in various school systems that were shut down in terms of doing online or virtual learning, and see how those may or may not be able to be incorporated into our future approach. So if the question was specific to the sort of in-person aspect of it, I think that we really need to look at those issues and figure out what we can glean was helpful and worked well for students from that virtual point of view.
Thank you. Ms. Feldmark, what question are you bringing?
Can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, just one moment to rearrange my cards here. Due to the pandemic student warning, due to the pandemic student learning has fallen behind an estimated 15 weeks. How do you plan to close this gap?
Thank you. So, one of the benefits of having the General Assembly meet every year is we have a chance to revisit legislation and make adjustments as needed. And that is something that we did last year to update the blueprint, specifically because of the experiences we saw as a result of COVID. So additional resources were dedicated to address learning loss with after-school programming, expanded summer school options, recognizing that additional support was something students needed. But a couple of other things that came out of the pandemic, recognizing the impact of digital divide and realizing that we needed additional resources to help close those issues in terms of both broadband access and devices. And also recognizing the impact that COVID had on mental health and making sure that we had additional supports for mental and behavioral health, not only for students, but for teachers too, because the pandemic was incredibly trying on everyone in the school system.
Thank you. The pandemic has brought a new level of transparency with many of the state meetings now posted online. More and more PTA members have been able to participate, and more are becoming aware of bills. They are also watching many bills dying without an explanation or a vote or consideration. Are there changes to this practice that you would implement?
Thank you very much. So again, I'm Terry Hill, running in 12A. So the answer to the question is that having greater access for the public to the legislative process is a win-win. And being able to have people give testimony remotely and not have to travel from all parts of the state down to Annapolis to participate, I think is a win as well. There are over 3,000 bills that are introduced to the legislative bodies every year. And although every bill that's introduced is guaranteed a hearing, not every hearing leads to a referral to subcommittee or a vote. And there are lots of reasons, and frankly, I think every legislator up here can speak to frustrations we've had with bills we've introduced that we've been frustrated, couldn't get moved, but usually it needs more work, and we can come back and work on it another year.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. And an important topic for all of us following legislation. What can the state do to improve school safety?
So that's a good question and a very timely one, obviously, with evolving tragedy still fresh on the forefront of many of our minds. The General Assembly, as part of the blueprint, actually took some additional steps to improve school safety. We set up a new center to study how we can help strengthen safety in our schools. And so it's serving as a clearinghouse, looking at different policies and provisions, not only here in Maryland, but across the country, to see what can be recommended to the General Assembly in the future when it comes to supporting safety in our schools. We have also taken measures to reduce threat of gun violence. For example, we banned ghost guns this past session, and we still continue to hear guns. In fact, today, one in Dorchester County as well, continue to show up in our schools, and we will continue. I'm firmly supportive, continue to support Common Fund's gun violence prevention measures.
Thank you. Are there ways the state legislature can help the local school districts make redistricting less divisive for local communities?
There's a balance there because even as I am asking to serve in the state legislature, there has to be a recognition that the community should have first say in what happens in their schools. And so to that extent, I wouldn't ever, I don't think, recommend legislation to have the state control what the schools do when they're considering redistricting. What I would do is attach and include language with all of the funding that says those decisions must be made based on what's best for the parents and what's best for the students. Getting back to one of the questions about if we were to take the buses into the school system for private coverage rather than what we're doing now with the public contracts, a good start there would be to stop the forced busing and allow children to attend the schools in their district. Because as far back as 2018, each additional bus route cost us $250,000. If you think about the expansion of that, because we're now busing students across the county, that's even more exacerbated.
Thank you. And our last question of the evening. What pieces of legislation, new or previously proposed, do you think will best benefit the state school system?
Well, having not been in the Senate, maybe I would have to say we need to get back to basics. Not to dodge the question. We have to have SROs in all the schools, not just middle and high school, but they have to be in elementary schools, middle school, and high school. We have to do everything we can do. The schools need a community, the community needs schools. Education is priority number one. The E for education adds to the second E, which is economics. Without the first E, you don't have the good economics. Everything revolves around the education. I see my time's almost out. I'd like to also bring up one more topic before we end, and that is election integrity. I need the voters in Howard County and Anne Arundel County to do their homework and look into election integrity. We're going to have 9 voting days, 11 drop boxes in Howard County with the same staff that we had with 1 day to vote and a written ballot. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for coming out tonight. I want to respect everyone's time, but it is a time-honored tradition to have closing remarks. I will just ask that they are brief, as in a 30-second closing remark. And thank you very much for coming out and spending your time with us this evening. I wish we had more time, but I think this is about the attention span that's appropriate. We have good viewership of these online, and we will try to respect that and give you the opportunity in writing to respond to any of these questions that you feel need more detail. Thank you, and we'll start in reverse order here, Mr. Cochran.
Thank you. I'm Bob Cochran. I'm running for the Senate in the 12th legislative district. That's a new district. I'm a small businessman. I've lived in Maryland my entire life. And I think I can represent not just Howard County and Anne Arundel County. As a state senator, I would like to represent over 6 million people that are citizens of the state of Maryland. Thank you for your time.
This is Maverine Robinson again, and I'm running against Bob in the primary and asking for your vote. I'm asking for your vote because there are many things that we've set up on this dais today, and we have people who have served us, and I would say that they've not necessarily served us as well as we need to be served with what's happening today. We have been remiss with not calling what CRT is what it is. There's an opportunity to teach the history of marginalization in this nation without teaching people that they are born inherently evil. We need people in the Senate who will stand against the caucus and bring the right things to our state and to our children. Thank you.
Thank you.
So good evening, and thank you again to the PTA Council for this opportunity. I'm Clarence Lamb, Senator in District 12, running for re-election to continue serving with Delegate Hill, Delegate Everett, Representative Belhart, representing District 12 in the Maryland General Assembly. We've made tremendous progress when it comes to supporting the school infrastructure, with funding, not only for our facilities, but also for our educators, enhancing our curriculum, supporting students with additional programs, and increasing transparency and accountability for all. We hope that we can continue to work on these very important issues. I'm Clarence Lamb, running for re-election to represent District 12 in the Maryland General Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you again for having us. I'm Terry Hill, running for re-election in the new 12A to continue working to bring the things to our students and to our community that we all think is so valuable. I'm proud to have the endorsement of the Maryland State Educators Association and to be running with my colleagues, Delegate Belmark and Delegate Lamb. And even before the pandemic, we in the General Assembly have been doing some amazing things, including recognizing that we need to increase supports for teachers and students in the schools, putting behavioral health supports in wraparound services, and we need to expand on those things, and the blueprint will allow us to do it, and it's been funded. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Delegate Jessica Belmart, running for re-election in District 12A. I believe that strengthening public education is the best investment we can make in the future of our children and the future of Maryland. Strong public schools are the foundation of a healthy democracy and a healthy economy. I'm proud of the progress that we've made in the General Assembly over the past 4 years that I've had the pleasure and honor of serving Howard County. There's much more work to do, and I'm asking for your support to send me back to Annapolis to continue that good work. Thank you.
First, thank you to the PTA Council of Howard County and everyone who attended this evening. Lots of very interesting questions, and I appreciate your time. Again, I'm Pam Landon-Gazzoni, and I'm running for delegate in District 13. I'm very grateful to the incumbent members of Team 13 for inviting me to join them, and I look forward to working with them and the full Howard County delegation come next January.
Hi, I'm Amy Brooks again, and I'm running for delegate in District 13 as well. I am an educator with 2 decades of experience, but we're not just one thing. I'm also a wife, a mother. I am very proud to represent my community because I tell my students that the government is us, and in representational government spaces, it's important to have actual representation from a variety of different people. So my students, their parents, my neighbors, community members across Howard County are coming out and door knocking with me because they know I will fight for them. Thank you.
I want to thank the PTA and Mr. Lovelace for your leadership to host this event. My name is Dr. Tao. Right now I'm serving the last year on the school board. So I want to ask for your support to serve on the state delegate level. I'm a data scientist, a father of 2, an immigrant, and a community volunteer. I still keep my vision, experience, and leadership to serve you. And I could say, a vote for who is a vote for you. Please remember that. Thank you.
Thank you. First, I want to say that I have 6 grandchildren in the Howard County schools, so I have a very personal interest in what goes on there, elementary, middle, and high. Second, I would say that, remember, we have a supermajority in our legislature, and while you may agree with most of what the supermajority does, it's not good for the state. You need to have a little bit more variety. Finally, if you really want to know what I stand for, on my website, all of the newsletters I've written for the last 6 years, and it's 12 at least times 6, you will find anything and everything that I've ever thought written down there.
My name is Dr. Seth Raman, and I'm a Republican candidate for 9A. And I'm pretty much running because of the trajectory that for the last few years, and as Delegate Kittleman mentioned, is heading the wrong way. You know, whether it's the taxes, the safety, the education, or the business climate. We need equal representation to ensure that we have the right people that are able to turn that ship around. And with my 30 years of experience in business, I think I'm the right person to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank PTAC again and Mr. Lovelace for having us here this evening. I'm Vanessa Atterbury. I'm running for re-election for District 13 along with my teammates, Pam Gazzoni, Jen Terrassa, and Senator Gazzoni. I currently chair the Ways and Means Committee, and I just want to say it has been my honor and privilege to serve the district in which I was born and raised, and now that I'm raising my 3 children. And I hope that you send me back to Annapolis to continue to chair the Ways and Means Committee, and so that we can have that partnership with Howard County. Thank you.
Thank you again to PTAC and to Brent Lovelace. It's been my pleasure to be here this evening. I'm Jen Terrassa, and I'm running for re-election to continue serving my community as I have for nearly 2 decades. I'm endorsed by many groups, including the Teachers Union and People's Choice Ethics Ballot. Again, this is Jen Terrassa, and I ask for your vote for re-election to District 13.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Stephen Rowland. I'm running for delegate in District 9A. And we need to help hardworking families and seniors who are struggling against inflation, pandemic, learning loss, and healthcare, mental health, and well-being of our students is a very big concern for a lot of people out there. There's a lot of work to be done. Let's together, let's grow up our sleeves, let's get the work done. Thank you. I'm Dr. Steve Bowman. I'm running for delegate in District 9A.
I'm Natalie Ziegler, also running for delegate in 9A.
Sorry.
My website is nataliefordelegate.com. There's a lot more information on it. I'm a small business owner. I think like one, which means I look for practical, common sense solutions. And I hope to provide fantastic constituent service for all of the residents of District 9A. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening, as well as our panel. We hope that all of you take the time and effort to watch our online component that will be posted shortly thereafter and edited slightly for brevity. And it is very important that everyone gets to participate that way so that you get a much larger audience and a wider pool of questions. We appreciate feedback on this interesting format that we've attempted this year to see whether it was constructive or not. And you are welcome to mingle with the crowd while we do a breakdown this evening. That is always an option. And I understand many of you want to go to the Howard County Hospital event too. So we wish you luck in either regard. Good evening, and thank you very much.